The 911 call arrived at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Dispatch logged it as routine. A hiker found a car parked on a dirt road near Malibu, keys still in the ignition. The doors were locked from inside. That detail changed everything. When the police opened that car, they found Felicia Johnson slumped across the steering wheel, 25 years old, brown skin already cooling. Her white summer dress, the same one she'd worn for 1,000 Instagram photos, now stained. Her purse was gone. Her phone was missing. Her final breath had left a small cloud on the windshield, and that cloud had dried hours ago. The officers photographed the scene. They noted the empty parking spot. They called in the detective. Nobody realized at that moment they were standing at the end of a story that had started with hope. 48 hours earlier. Felicia had been in Los Angeles. She'd been alive. She'd been terrified. And she'd made a choice that seemed small at the time, but changed everything. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. But before you answer that, let me take you back to where this story actually begins. Not with death, but with a girl in Jacksonville, Florida, who had no idea that the phone in her hand, the same device showing her face to the world, would become her executioner. Felicia Johnson was beautiful in a way that caught people off guard. Not model card beautiful. Real beautiful. The kind where you'd turn your head twice, once from instinct, once because you had to make sure. She had warm brown eyes that held stories, long wavy black hair that moved when she talked, and a smile that made people think they'd done something right just by being noticed by her. In her photos, she wore white cotton dresses and sat on Miami beaches at sunset. She posted captions about resilience and self-love. 50,000 followers believed she was living her best life. The truth was different. Felicia worked 2 jobs, one at a retail store where the manager scheduled her for closing shifts, and one as a freelance social media content creator, which meant photographing herself and hoping brands noticed. Her mother lived 30 minutes away in a cramped apartment, dealing with high blood pressure that the medication didn't quite control. Felicia sent money when she could, which wasn't often. The rent was due. The car needed an oil change. She was tired of being told her smile was marketable, but her labor wasn't valuable. That Tuesday morning when the police found her, her Instagram account still showed her last story. A sunset photo from Monday evening, posted just 6 hours before she died. The caption read, "Sometimes the light finds you right before the darkness does. Trust the journey." 3,000 people had already liked it. None of them knew she'd written that caption the moment before she parked her car and stopped moving. But here's what matters right now. This didn't start with her body in that car. It started exactly 5 weeks before, at 2:13 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, when Felicia was sitting in the break room at work, stress-eating a sad tuna sandwich and scrolling through Instagram on her cracked phone screen. Her co-worker, Tasha, was complaining about her boyfriend. The air conditioning sputtered, and then her phone buzzed with a direct message from an account she didn't recognize. The username was @MalikReedInvestor. The profile picture showed a man's face, handsome, confident, with a neatly trimmed beard and eyes that looked at the camera like he owned it. The bio read, "Investor, philanthropist, opportunity creator." His most recent photo was him standing in front of a villa in Dubai, wearing a cream-colored designer thobe with gold threading, the sun hitting his skin like he was the main character of his own movie. He had 847,000 followers. The account was verified. Felicia almost deleted the message without reading it. She'd been getting DMs from grown men since she was 19. Some crude, most boring, all heading nowhere. But something made her stop. Maybe it was his opening line. Maybe it was simple luck. "Your energy caught my eye," the message said. "I'm building something that needs exactly what you represent." She read it twice. Then she looked at his profile again. The villa, the private jet, the photos from charity galas. The blue check mark next to his name that meant he was important. She wrote back. That decision, one tap of her thumb on glass, started a chain reaction that would end 5 weeks later with her body going cold in a parked car. The moment Felicia hit send, Malik Reed's phone buzzed on the other side of the country. He was sitting in his actual villa, the one that looked exactly like the photos, holding a glass of champagne and scrolling through profiles. When he saw her message, "Hi, thanks for reaching out. Who are you exactly?" He smiled. Predators have a sixth sense for opportunity. They can smell need through a screen, and Malik had been doing this for longer than Felicia had been alive. He responded immediately. "Someone who appreciates real beauty and real potential. We should talk about what's possible for someone like you." By Friday evening, Felicia and Malik had been texting for 2 days straight. Not about anything concrete. He never rushed. He asked about her dreams. He asked about her mother. He asked what kept her awake at night. Every response from him arrived within minutes, and every one made her feel seen in a way nobody else had ever managed. She told him about the modeling agencies that had rejected her. He said they didn't recognize genius when it stood in front of them. She told him about bills stacking up. He said most people never understood the difference between valuable and priceless. She told him nobody in Jacksonville took her seriously. He said Jacksonville wasn't big enough for what she could become. They moved from Instagram DMs to text messages. He sent her his WhatsApp. His messages came at random times, 3 a.m., 6:15 p.m., 11:47 a.m., which meant he was thinking about her all day. At least that's how it felt. The consistency was hypnotic. No man had ever been this responsive. No man had ever seemed this interested in her thoughts. On Saturday, Malik sent her a voice note. His voice was deep and measured, the kind of voice that sounded expensive. "I've got to be straight with you, Felicia. I don't recruit every person who catches my attention. But you, there's something different about you. Real, authentic. I'm launching a campaign for my new women's empowerment brand, and I want you to be the face of it. We're talking real opportunity here, not the usual Instagram sponsorship stuff. Something bigger." Felicia played the voice note 4 times. She showed it to her best friend, Tasha, at work. Tasha listened with her eyebrows raised. "Girl, that sounds too good to be true," Tasha said, handing the phone back. But it didn't feel too good to be true. It felt like, finally, after 25 years of hard work and Instagram posts at midnight and rejections and dead-end hours, something was happening. Malik's next message came within an hour. "Would you consider coming to LA for a week? I'll cover everything. Flight, hotel, all meals. We'll do a proper photo shoot, introduce you to the right people, and by the time you leave, your life will be completely different. I promise you that." She didn't say yes immediately. She sat with the phone in her pocket for an hour, feeling her heart doing something it hadn't done before. She thought about her mother. She thought about the bills. She thought about Jacksonville. Then she looked at Malik's Instagram profile one more time. Those photos, that verification, that blue check mark. And she typed, "When?" "Monday," he wrote. "I'm sending you a first-class ticket right now. You deserve to travel like the queen you are." The ticket arrived in her email exactly 3 minutes later. Los Angeles International Airport, Delta Flight 1942. Departure, 8:15 a.m. Return date, the following Sunday. A hotel reservation came next. The Lux Sunset Boulevard, 4-star rating, ocean view room. Then a third email, a payment notification for $1,200 transferred to her bank account. Wardrobe expenses, his message said. Buy whatever makes you feel powerful. Felicia stared at the number in her account. $1,200. She had never seen that number in her checking account before. She called her mother. She didn't tell her everything, just that an opportunity had come through. Her mother said to be careful. Her mother always said to be careful. But her mother also said, if it's real, baby, you take it. By Sunday night, Felicia had packed a suitcase. She'd bought 2 new outfits at the mall, a designer dress and jeans that actually fit. She'd gotten her nails done. She'd taken 1,000 photos to get the right angle for her flight photo. Tasha drove her to the airport at 6 a.m. In the car, Tasha kept saying it again. This still feels weird, Felicia. Like, I'm happy for you, but it feels weird. Felicia hugged her at the curb. I'll send you updates, she said, and if something's off, I'll get on a plane back home. I promise. She didn't make it to the return flight. The plane landed in Los Angeles at 11:40 a.m. on Monday. Felicia walked through the terminal in her new dress, pulling her suitcase and trying not to smile too big. She'd flown before, but never first class. Never like this. She found the car service driver holding a sign with her name spelled perfectly, Felicia. The car was a black Mercedes, cold air conditioning, bottled water in the cup holder. Her phone buzzed. Malik. Welcome to paradise. I'm excited to finally meet you in person. The car will take you to the hotel to freshen up. I'll pick you up at 7 p.m. We have dinner reservations at a place that overlooks the entire city. Wear the white dress if you have one. You'll understand why when you see the sunset. She had brought a white dress. She'd packed it specifically wondering if he'd notice. He'd noticed. He knew her. Somehow, through a screen, in just 5 days, he'd learned what mattered to her. The hotel room was nothing like Jacksonville. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the city sprawling out like someone had opened the future just for her to see. She stood on the balcony for 20 minutes, not moving. Then she texted him. I'm here. I can't believe I'm here. His response. Believe it. This is just the beginning. I'll see you at 7. At 6:47 p.m., Felicia stood in front of the hotel mirror, wearing her white dress. Her hair was down. Her makeup was careful. She looked like the version of herself that she'd always wanted to be, the one that the algorithms rewarded, the one that made sense to people who saw her on screens. She took a photo. 18 seconds of video. A caption. The universe is conspiring in my favor. She posted it to her Instagram story. 5 seconds later, Malik replied to her photo in her DMs. Stunning. I know a few photographers who are going to lose their minds when they see you in person. Come downstairs. She picked up her purse. She checked her phone one last time. Her mother had texted, Have fun, baby. Be smart. She turned the phone to silent. She walked downstairs. The lobby was all marble and soft lighting. And there, standing by the entrance in a cream-colored thobe with gold embroidery, was Malik Reed. He was even more handsome in person than his photos. Taller, more present. When he saw her, he smiled. Not a full smile, just a small lift at the corners of his mouth, like he'd been expecting exactly this moment, and she was delivering it perfectly. He extended his hand. She took it. His palm was warm. His grip was firm. His eyes held hers for just a second too long, and she felt something shift inside her chest. "Felicia," he said. "Finally." "Hi," she said. That was all she could manage. "You look even better than your photos," he said. "Come on, the restaurant is waiting." They drove through Los Angeles in Malik's car, not the Mercedes from before, but a different car, a Range Rover, sleek and black and expensive. He played jazz music low. He asked her questions the entire drive. What was her favorite food? Had she ever left Florida before? What was her biggest dream? She answered everything. She felt comfortable. She felt chosen. She felt like this was exactly where she was supposed to be. The restaurant sat on a hill overlooking the entire city. The sun was dropping toward the ocean, turning the sky into something that looked photoshopped. Malik had reserved the best table. Felicia sat across from him, and he ordered for both of them, things she'd never heard of, things that came out on small white plates arranged like art. He talked about his business. He talked about women he'd helped become successful. He talked about the campaign he wanted her to be the face of, a brand about female empowerment, independence, wealth building. He said she embodied all of it. "I see a lot of potential in you," he said, moving his wine glass around in circles. "But potential is only half of it. The other half is opportunity. And I'm about to give you exactly that." Felicia smiled. She believed him completely. What she didn't see was the calculation behind his eyes. What she didn't know was that Malik had already mapped out exactly how this would go. What she couldn't have understood, sitting there at sunset with the city lights beginning to turn on below them, was that she wasn't going to make it back to Florida. The week leading up to the shoot was a masterclass in seduction. Malik didn't ask for anything inappropriate. He was respectful. He was perfect. He took her to expensive coffee shops in the morning. He sent her to a high-end salon for hair and makeup that cost more than her monthly rent. He introduced her to photographers. At least, he showed her their websites on his phone, talked about how they were waiting to work with her, how exclusive this all was. Everything about it felt legitimate, because it was designed to feel that way. On Wednesday, he transferred another $5,000 to her account. "For your time and energy," his message said. "This is just the beginning." Felicia called her mother that afternoon. Her mother was in the middle of her shift at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. "Mama, he transferred $5,000. Her mother's voice came through, careful. "Baby, where is this coming from exactly? It's for a campaign, a photo shoot. This is my big break." "Has he explained exactly what the photo shoot is? Like, what you'll be doing?" Felicia hesitated. "Not yet. He said we'd go over all the details tomorrow." "And you're staying where?" "At a nice hotel. A really nice hotel. Everything is paid for. He's even—" "Felicia." Her mother cut her off, her nurse voice, the one she used when she needed to be heard. "I'm not trying to kill your dream, but something about this doesn't add up. Men don't just give money to girls, they just met. This isn't a random man. He's verified. He has hundreds of thousands of followers. He's a businessman. Baby, you can verify a fake profile. You can buy followers. You can do a lot of things online." Her mother paused. Felicia could hear hospital sounds in the background, machines beeping, people walking. "Just be careful. That's all I'm asking." They hung up. Felicia sat on the hotel bed, the phone in her hand, her mother's words taking up space in her head. But then she looked at her bank account, $13,000 sitting there, more money than she'd ever had. and she pushed the doubt down. That night, Malik invited her to dinner at his villa. He sent the same black Mercedes. The drive took them higher into the Hollywood Hills, the city falling away below them, the streets getting quieter and more private. The villa appeared through the gates like something from a magazine. Modern architecture, floor-to-ceiling windows, a pool that reflected the lights of the city. It was exactly like his Instagram photos, which somehow made it feel both real and impossible. He was waiting on the patio when she arrived. He'd changed into casual clothes, expensive casual, the kind that costs real money to look like you didn't try. He poured her a glass of wine. They sat by the pool. The city sprawled below them like a board game, all the pieces in place, all the rules already written. "Tomorrow," he said, "we do the shoot." "Where?" she asked. "Here, actually. I have a whole setup inside. Professional lighting. I brought in a makeup artist, one of the best in the city. We're going to take some photos that are going to change your life, Felicia." She smiled and sipped her wine. She didn't notice him watching her, the way his eyes tracked where her hands were, where her attention went. He was mapping the space. He was already 3 steps ahead. "I'm excited," she said. "You should be," he said. "By tomorrow night, you're going to understand exactly why I saw something in you." They talked for 2 hours. He held her attention the way a skilled magician does, not by force, but by knowing exactly what you wanted to see. He told her stories about women he'd helped become influencers. He showed her their before and after photos on his phone. He talked about money and opportunity and how most people never get a real chance because they're too afraid to take risks. He made it all seem inevitable. He made her feel like she was smart for being there. Around midnight, the Mercedes took her back to the hotel. Malik kissed her hand when they said goodbye. Just her hand, nothing more, nothing that would be inappropriate. But his lips lingered a second too long, and his eyes held something she couldn't quite read. That night, she posted a photo to Instagram stories, Malik in the background, blurry, the pool lights creating halos in the darkness. Caption: "Dreams don't scare me anymore. I became them." Her phone blew up. Comments, likes, DMs from people asking who she was with. People wanted to know. She was becoming a mystery. She was becoming something bigger than herself. Thursday morning, Felicia woke up in her hotel room and texted Malik. "Ready?" His response came immediately. "Come to the villa at 2 p.m. Wear something simple, something that makes you feel powerful." She packed an extra outfit in her purse. She got her hair done again. She was so focused on looking perfect that she almost didn't notice the small voice in her head, saying something was off. Almost. At 1:45 p.m., she got in the Mercedes again. The driver didn't speak. The city passed outside the window. The roads got quieter. The villa appeared behind its gates like a place that existed outside of normal geography, outside of normal rules. This was Thursday. By Tuesday morning, she'd be dead. The villa was different in afternoon light. Still beautiful, still expensive, but it held the quiet of a place where nobody was watching. Malik opened the door before she could knock. He was shirtless under an open cream linen shirt, the fabric hanging off his shoulders. His skin gleamed. Everything about him was designed. Nothing about him was accidental. "Come in," he said. The villa's interior was minimalist. White walls, expensive art, marble floors that echoed. Where was the crew? Where were the cameras and lights he'd mentioned? She looked around, turning slowly. "Where is everything?" she asked. "It's all inside," he said. "Come on." He led her through the villa. Living room, kitchen, a long hallway. No crew, no lights, no equipment. Just rooms that looked like they were staged for a magazine shoot that never happened. Her stomach did something small and tight. "Malik, I don't see—" "It's okay," he said. "We're setting up. Come sit for a second. Let's talk about the shoot." They sat in the living room on furniture so white and clean it looked like nobody had ever sat on it. He poured wine without asking if she wanted any. He handed her the glass. "Before we start," he said, "I want to be honest with you about something." Her hand was halfway to her lips. Something in his tone had changed. Something small. Something she wouldn't have noticed if she wasn't already starting to notice everything. "What?" she said. He smiled. Not the smile from the restaurant. A different smile. "I didn't bring you here for photos." The words landed in the middle of the room, like something dropped from a height. "What do you mean?" she said. "I brought you here because I wanted to see if you had what it takes to be serious about this." He leaned back on the couch. "There's a lot of money in the industry, Felicia. Real money. But you have to be willing to do more than just smile for a camera." She set the wine glass down. "What are you talking about?" "Let's not pretend," he said. "You know what this is. $5,000, plane ticket, hotel room. You don't think that's an investment in a regular photo shoot, do you?" She stood up. "I'm leaving." "Sit down," he said. His voice was still smooth, but the gentleness had evaporated. What was underneath was cold. "Let's be realistic. You're in my home. You're in Los Angeles. You took my money. You already participated. We're past the pretending stage." She walked toward the door. He didn't move, but he laughed, a short, harsh sound that made her turn around. "You're not going anywhere," he said. "I have a phone in here." He gestured toward the kitchen counter, where a phone was sitting, recording. "And what's on that phone belongs to me now." Felicia's eyes went to the phone. The screen was dark, but the light above it was on. Recording. Everything. How long? What had he captured? She thought of her messages with him, her photos, her videos, her mother's voice on the phone. "Delete it," she said. He didn't move from the couch. "No. Delete it, or I'll go to the police." He smiled that dangerous smile again. "And tell them what? That you came to a man's house who you met on Instagram? That you took his money? That you've been texting me sexually explicit messages?" He leaned forward slightly. "Because that's what's on the phone, Felicia. You. Being very, very explicit." She hadn't sent him anything like that. But in this moment, it didn't matter if she had or not. It mattered that he was calm. It mattered that he'd planned this. It mattered that she was standing in his villa and the door was somewhere behind her, and she had no idea what was about to happen next. She ran. She turned and ran for the door she'd come through. Her hand found the knob. She pulled. The door didn't open. She pulled again. Nothing. He had locked it. She could hear him getting up from the couch, could hear his footsteps on the marble floor. His footsteps were unhurried. He wasn't worried she would escape. Her hands were shaking as she looked for the lock mechanism. There. A keypad on the wall, glowing red. Not green. Not unlocked. He was behind her now, and she could smell him, could feel the space between his body and hers closing. She remembered the self-defense training her mother had insisted on years ago. A moment of clarity. She turned and she slapped him as hard as she could. His face snapped to the side. A line of blood appeared at his lip. For a second, they both stood completely still. Then she saw the knife on the kitchen counter. No, not a knife. A letter opener. Decorative. Sharp enough. She didn't think about it. She moved, grabbed it, held it out in front of her. "Open the door," she said. He touched his lip where the blood was. He looked at it on his finger. He looked at her like she was an insect that had suddenly sprouted wings. "You think that's going to stop me?" he asked. She didn't answer. She was looking for another way out. Windows, doors, exits. The living room had a patio door. She moved toward it, the letter opener in front of her, her eyes on him. He watched her go, making no move to follow. He just smiled and said, "I'll find you." She unlocked the patio door and ran. The neighborhood around the villa was empty. No people. No other houses close enough to scream toward. Just Felicia in her white dress, bare feet on hot pavement because she'd lost her shoes somehow, the late afternoon sun beating down. She ran for 10 minutes until she found a main road. She flagged down a car. A woman was driving, older, grey hair, shocked at the sight of this young black woman stumbling into traffic with blood on her dress and terror in her face. "Hospital," the woman said. "I'll take you to the hospital." "No," Felicia said. Just away." She rode for 30 minutes without speaking. The woman didn't ask questions. She knew something serious had happened. She just drove and let Felicia breathe. At a red light, Felicia asked to be dropped at a gas station. The woman wanted to call the police. Felicia said no. She just needed to get away. She paid cash for a hotel room under a fake name. The clerk didn't look at her twice. People in Los Angeles looked worse. She locked herself in the room on Friday night and stared at the wall. Her phone had been in her purse the entire time. She pulled it out and started blocking everything. Malik's accounts, his numbers. He called from 3 different ones. She blocked them all. She deleted their conversations. She turned her location off. She changed her privacy settings to private. Saturday morning, she woke to messages from unknown numbers, different accounts reaching out from Instagram. Messages so casual, they were almost convincing. "Hey, I'm a friend of Malik's. Just wanted to connect." Fake profiles with real-looking photos. She blocked each one. Each one felt like he was reaching through the phone to grab her. By Saturday afternoon, his tone had shifted. The messages came through her DMs from new accounts. "You don't block me. Nobody blocks me. You have no idea who I am. I could find you right now if I wanted to. I know where you're staying. I know everyone you care about. You think your mother is safe in Jacksonville with a man like me watching. You think Tasha is safe. You made a mistake, Felicia." She called her mother. "I need to come home." Her mother heard everything in those 4 words. She bought Felicia a ticket for Sunday morning. Felicia sat in another hotel room Saturday night, listening to her phone buzz with messages from accounts that didn't exist, each one feeling like a countdown to something. On Sunday morning, she went to the airport. She was at the gate, about to board, when a black car pulled up outside the terminal. She couldn't see the driver clearly. The sun was too bright, but she could feel him watching. She walked onto the plane faster. She took her seat. She didn't look out the window as the plane pushed back from the gate. She made it home. For 72 hours, she was safe. She blocked her number. She stayed inside. She told her mother everything. Her mother wanted to call the police. Felicia said the photos he had would come out. The leaked intimate images would end up everywhere. She couldn't let that happen. "Then what do we do?" her mother asked. Felicia didn't answer, because the answer was that she didn't know. He knew where she lived. He knew her mother's hospital. He knew her best friend's name. He had resources she couldn't comprehend, and he had already demonstrated that he didn't accept rejection. On Wednesday night, she went out for the first time since coming back. She went to a coffee shop near her apartment, thought maybe if she was in public, she'd feel less terrified. She was ordering coffee when a number she didn't recognize texted her. "Turn around." She turned. There was nobody. But in the window reflection, she could see a black car parked across the street. She ran back home. She packed a bag that night. She told her mother she was staying with a friend. She wasn't. She was driving north, away from Jacksonville, toward anywhere that wasn't where he knew her to be. Thursday night, she parked near a hiking trail outside Malibu. She'd driven 10 hours. She had no plan. She was exhausted. She thought that if she could just sit in the quiet for a moment, she could figure out what to do. She reclined her seat and closed her eyes. At 3:47 a.m., someone knocked on her car window. She jolted awake. Her heart stopped. It was a police officer. "Ma'am, you need to move this vehicle." Relief flooded through her. An actual cop. Actual protection. She sat up, fumbled for her window button. She was about to tell him everything when she saw the black car 2 rows over. The engine was on. Someone was inside it, waiting. She told the officer she was just resting. He said she needed to go to a hotel. She nodded. She watched him walk away. She started her car. She didn't look at the black car as she drove out of the parking lot. She drove for another hour. She stopped at another gas station and called a taxi company. She got out of her car and told the driver where to take her. Then she sat in the back of that taxi, watching Jacksonville blur past, and she realized she had made a mistake. She had never given Malik her mother's real address, but she'd given him her apartment address. She'd given him her workplace. She'd given him Tasha's name. He knew everything about who she loved. He wasn't trying to find her anymore. He was sending her a message. At 6:17 a.m. on Friday morning, Felicia's phone buzzed. Not with a message, with an alert from her banking app. $25,000 was being transferred out of her account. The transfer was complete before she could even process what she was seeing. She called the bank. They said the authorization code came from her account. She hadn't authorized it. She called her mother. "Mama, he's draining my account." Her mother's voice came through low and terrified. "Get back here. Right now." Felicia took another taxi back to her apartment. She grabbed her car keys. She was shaking so badly she could barely hold the steering wheel. She drove north again, toward the coast, not really thinking about where she was going. She just needed to not be where he could find her. She made it to Malibu at dawn. She parked the car near the hiking trail again. The same one. She reclined the seat. She told herself she was going to figure this out. She told herself she was going to be okay. She closed her eyes. This time, when she opened them, it was because the window was breaking. The first thing Felicia saw was a face she didn't recognize. Male. Dark eyes. Cold eyes. Not Malik. Someone else. Someone sent. The window exploded inward, and her survival instinct fired without permission. She threw the car into reverse and mashed the accelerator. The tires spun on gravel. The car lurched backward. The man who wasn't Malik yelled something, but she couldn't hear it over the percussion of her own terror. She swung the car in a wide U-turn and drove. The coastal highway was empty at dawn. She drove toward nothing, just away from the thing behind her. Her phone was buzzing. Multiple calls coming in. Unknown numbers. known numbers. She didn't look at any of them. She drove for 20 minutes before she pulled into a public parking lot at a beach. She sat in her car with the doors locked, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching the ocean like it had answers. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. She finally looked at it. 43 missed calls, 37 text messages. She opened the texts without reading them all the way through. They came from numbers that kept changing, but they all said variations of the same thing. We know where you are. Your mother's shift ends at 3. Tasha closes at the mall on Friday. You can't run forever. She called the Jacksonville Police Department. The officer who answered didn't sound concerned. A man is threatening you? The officer said. What's his name? Malik Reed, or Marcus Harlan. He's in Los Angeles. Or maybe he's not. I don't know anymore. Did he make a direct threat of violence? She thought about the men at her apartment, the car following her, the money he'd stolen from her account. Yes, she said, multiple threats. We'd need you to file a formal report. You'd need to come in person. Do you live in Jacksonville? I did. I don't know where I live anymore. She hung up. Filing a police report meant making it official. It meant the photos he had would come out. It meant the narrative would shift from young woman targeted by predator to woman who put herself in the situation. She knew how people thought. She'd read enough comments on enough posts. Victim blaming wasn't a bug in people's thinking. It was a feature. Instead, she drove to a Walmart and bought a phone, a cheap one. She turned off the smartphone and removed the battery. She got a hotel room, cash only, using fake information. She sat in that room for 2 days, ordering food to the room, not leaving for anything. Her mother had called the Jacksonville police anyway. They told her they couldn't do much until a crime was actually committed, until someone was actually harmed, until it was too late. By Thursday, Felicia had moved hotels 3 times. She was burning through money. The balance in her account was down to $700. She'd spent everything else trying to disappear. She called her mother from the cheap phone. Mama, I need to come home. Baby, I don't know if that's safe. I don't know if anywhere is safe. Her mother paused. Felicia could hear the hospital background, the machines, the sound of her mother's life continuing while hers had stopped. If you come home, we go to the police. All of it. The photos, the money, everything. We tell them. Felicia thought about that. She thought about the shame of it. She thought about never working again, about every job application coming up empty, because the first result when they Googled her name would be scandal. But she was also thinking about being alive, being home, being somewhere that wasn't a hotel room where she was waiting for the door to break down. Okay, she said. I'll come home. She bought a bus ticket with cash. The bus station was crowded, full of people who weren't looking for her. She sat in the terminal for 2 hours before boarding, watching for black cars, for men who moved with purpose, for anything that felt aimed at her. Nobody came. The bus pulled out at 3 p.m. on Friday afternoon and pointed itself toward Florida. She slept for 6 hours straight. When she woke up, the sun was setting. Her phone was still off. She kept it that way. She'd been running for 4 days. Her mind was starting to feel like static. The bus station in Jacksonville smelled like diesel and broken dreams. Her mother was waiting outside, and the moment Felicia saw her, she cried. Actually cried. Deep, ugly animal sounds that came from somewhere she didn't know existed. Her mother held her in the parking lot for 5 minutes without speaking. Then she said, "We're going to the police, right now." The Jacksonville Police Department was a building like any other. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, officers moving with the kind of boredom that came from seeing everything and caring about nothing. Her mother explained the situation while Felicia sat next to her, twisting her hands in her lap. The detective who took their statement was a woman named Detective Keisha Williams. She was black. She was listening. She was taking notes. "We're going to need you to show us the messages," Detective Williams said. Felicia turned on her old phone for the first time since Florida. It took forever to boot up. The messages were all there. The DMs from Malik, the threats from the unknown numbers, all of it preserved in the phone's memory. Detective Williams photographed everyone with her camera. She asked questions. She took down information. By the end, she said something that made Felicia's chest tight. "This is going to be a federal case," Detective Williams said. "This involves interstate commerce, extortion, possibly human trafficking. We're going to contact the FBI." "What about my privacy?" Felicia asked. "What about the photos?" Detective Williams closed her notebook. "Ms. Johnson, that man broke into your car to kidnap you. That changes what this is. This isn't about privacy anymore. This is about stopping him from doing this to someone else." They took her statement for 3 hours. They took her phone as evidence. They got her contact information and told her an FBI agent would be reaching out. When it was over, she walked out of that police station feeling like she'd made a choice she couldn't undo. She'd put her trauma on the public record. She'd made herself vulnerable in a different way, but she'd also just moved from victim to witness, from hiding to participating in her own justice. That night, she slept in her own bed for the first time in 2 weeks. She didn't sleep well. She woke up twice from nightmares about windows breaking. But she woke up. 2 days later, at 2:47 p.m. on a Sunday, Felicia's phone rang. It was FBI Special Agent Marcus Thompson. He had a voice that sounded like it had been through a lot. "Ms. Johnson? I'm going to be brief because I know you've been through hell. We've been tracking Marcus Harlan for 3 years. Your case is the clearest evidence we have of his pattern. I need you to understand something. He's done this before, multiple times, different states, different names." "How many?" Felicia asked. "We have identified 7 confirmed victims. There may be more who haven't come forward. He uses a variation of the same method every time: wealth, charm, opportunity, then isolation and coercion. Sometimes the victims escape. Sometimes they don't." Felicia felt the words like stones being dropped down a well inside her body. 7. At least 7. "Where is he now?" "That's the complicated part," Agent Thompson said. "He disappeared. The day you filed the police report, he emptied his Los Angeles villa, liquidated his accounts. His private jet took off from a small airport outside Phoenix heading south. We believe he's heading toward Mexico or possibly Central America. We're working with international law enforcement, but men like Harlan know how to run." "So he's still out there?" "Yes," Agent Thompson said. "But Ms. Johnson, he's also burned now. Every law enforcement agency in North America has his face and his real name. He can't move freely. He can't set up the same way again. Your case changed something. It made him visible." They talked for another 30 minutes. Agent Thompson explained that Felicia might need to testify if they caught him. She might need to relive all of this in a courtroom. But she would be protected. The federal government would back her. She wouldn't be alone. After they hung up, Felicia sat on her bed for an hour without moving. 7 other women. How many of them had believed him? How many of them had been where she'd been, in that villa, realizing too late that the man they'd trusted had another plan entirely? She opened her laptop and did something she'd been afraid to do. She searched her own name, plus Malik Reed. Articles came up. News coverage from Los Angeles. Local news in Florida. A headline from TMZ. Instagram influencers escape from wealthy predator. The article quoted her mother. It quoted Detective Williams. It told the story, but it told it with angles, with drama, with the kind of sensationalism that turned real trauma into entertainment. She read the comments. Thousands of them. Why would she go to his house alone? This is why girls shouldn't trust rich men on the internet. She was probably looking for easy money anyway. I feel bad for her, but also she should have known better. The comments kept going. For every person who offered support, there were 5 questioning her judgment, 5 demanding to know why she didn't see the signs, 5 suggesting she'd done something to deserve this. She closed the laptop. She called Tasha. Tasha drove to her apartment and sat on the couch with a bottle of wine and her best friend's pain. "Ignore them," Tasha said. "The internet is full of people who blame victims because it makes them feel safer. Like if they can explain why something bad happened to you, it won't happen to them. But what if they're right? What if I should have known?" Felicia. Tasha took her hand. "He was a professional predator. This is what he does. This is what he's good at. It's not about whether you should have known. It's about the fact that there are people in the world who make a living out of exploiting people like you. And the only way to stop them is to say what happened and not apologize for surviving it." Monday morning came with rain. Felicia was sitting on her apartment steps, drinking coffee, watching the rain create rivers in the gutters, when her phone rang again. It was Detective Williams. "We've got him," the detective said. "The FBI tracked his phone to Belize. They're coordinating with local authorities. It took 8 days, but they found him." Felicia didn't feel what she expected to feel. She thought she'd feel relief. Instead, she felt a strange, hollow thing. "Is he going to extradite?" "That's what we're working on. But Ms. Johnson, there's something else." The FBI found records on his laptop, evidence of other victims, including some whose cases were reported as accidental deaths, including some whose cases were never reported at all. The words hung in the phone line like a held breath. "What do you mean, accidental deaths?" "I mean," Detective Williams said carefully, "that Marcus Harlan might be responsible for more than extortion. The investigation is ongoing, but you need to know that the woman you could have been is a cautionary tale that didn't have to end in tragedy because you survived. Other women might not have been that lucky." After they hung up, Felicia went to the bathroom and threw up. She stayed there on her knees in front of the toilet, understanding for the first time the full scope of what had happened to her. She'd escaped someone who didn't just want to exploit her. She'd escaped someone who had possibly killed. The news broke 3 days later. Local Jacksonville news at first, then it spiraled into national coverage. Serial predator arrested in Belize. FBI connects suspect to multiple deaths. Woman's escape leads to international investigation. Felicia's name was redacted in some articles, splashed across others. Her photo from Instagram, the sunset one, the one she'd posted while she was terrified, became the image that accompanied every story. The internet turned her into a celebrity of trauma. People she hadn't talked to in years were reaching out. Brands were offering sponsorships. News networks wanted interviews. True crime podcasters were already working on episodes. Her survival had become content. She declined all of it. She wanted to disappear again, just in a different way. She called the FBI and asked if she could testify remotely. Agent Thompson said there would likely be a trial, but that was months away. For now, she needed to rest. She needed to heal. She needed to rebuild whatever part of her Malik had stolen. The trial started on a Tuesday in December, 6 months after Felicia first saw that verified Instagram account. The courthouse was crawling with media. News vans with satellites on top, reporters with microphones, protesters with signs. Some signs read, "Justice for all victims." Others read, "She knew what she was doing." Felicia wore a grey suit that her mother helped her pick out. She looked professional. She looked credible. She looked like she belonged in a courtroom, though she felt like an imposter. She'd never testified about anything. She'd never stood in front of a man and told the truth about what he'd done to her while he sat 6 feet away listening to every word. The prosecutor was a woman named Assistant District Attorney Aisha Nelson. She was sharp and thorough. She walked Felicia through everything: the DMs, the money, the flight, the villa. The moment she realized it was a trap, every detail was extracted carefully, precisely. The jury was composed of 7 women and 5 men. They watched Felicia with expressions that ranged from empathy to suspicion. Then it was Marcus Harlan's lawyer's turn. The defense attorney was a man named Robert Chen. He was good at his job, which meant he was good at making Felicia look like she'd made poor choices. He asked her about the money she'd accepted. He asked her about the messages that could be interpreted as flirting. He asked her why she'd come to his home alone. He never said it outright, but the implication was clear. She'd participated in her own victimization. Felicia stayed calm. She answered every question. She didn't let him bait her into anger. She just told the truth, and the truth was that she'd made decisions based on the information available to her, and that Malik had lied about everything. She'd been deceived by someone who knew exactly how to deceive. The prosecution brought other evidence: the phone recordings, Felicia's bank statements, phone records showing Malik's calls to her from multiple numbers. They brought Detective Williams to testify about the investigation. They brought an FBI digital forensics expert to explain how Malik had taken photos of Felicia without her knowledge while she was in his villa, photos that he'd later threatened to distribute. Then the prosecution did something that changed everything. They presented evidence of the other victims, not just the 7 confirmed victims. The 5 women who came forward after Felicia's case broke. The 3 women who were identified through his phone records. The 2 women whose cases had been closed as suicides, but whose evidence now suggested foul play. 15 women. 15 lives that Marcus Harlan had touched and broken and moved past like they were just data points in his story of accumulation. The defense argued that those cases were separate, that they had no bearing on Marcus Harlan's actions toward Felicia. But the jury had heard the pattern, they'd heard the names, they'd heard the stories. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, they found Marcus Harlan guilty on 17 counts: extortion, attempted kidnapping, interstate transmission of threats, identity theft, invasion of privacy, wire fraud. The judge sentenced him to life without parole. Marcus Harlan didn't react. He sat in his seat with the same composed expression he'd worn throughout the trial. He looked at Felicia with eyes that held no remorse, no recognition that he'd done anything wrong. He looked at her like she was a problem he hadn't managed to solve before getting arrested. When it was over, Felicia walked out of the courthouse into a wall of camera flashes. Her mother held her hand. Reporters screamed questions. She didn't answer any of them. She just walked to the car and got in and sat there while her mother drove them home. That night, her phone exploded with notifications. Her old Instagram post, the sunset one, the one from the week she died in everything except body, had been shared 100,000 times. Comments poured in from people who knew her, people who didn't, people who wanted to thank her for speaking up, people who wanted to shame her for what she'd allowed to happen. The internet had turned her survival into a referendum. Everyone had an opinion about whether she'd handled it correctly. She deactivated her account the next morning. The media coverage continued for weeks. Think pieces about online safety, articles about predator patterns, interviews with other women who'd been groomed online. Felicia's story had become a cautionary tale. But it had also become something else. It had become evidence. Evidence that these things happened. Evidence that they were preventable. Evidence that the men who did them could be stopped. 6 weeks after the trial, Felicia got a letter. It came to her apartment, forwarded through her lawyer. The return address said, Correctional Facility, Federal Penitentiary, Coleman, Florida. It was from Marcus Harlan. Her mother found it in the mailbox. She brought it inside and set it on the table and said, You don't have to read it. But Felicia did. She opened the envelope and unfolded the paper. The handwriting was neat, almost beautiful. He wrote, Felicia, I want you to know that I don't regret anything I did. I regret being caught. There's a difference. You had an opportunity to be part of something significant, and you chose to be ordinary instead. You chose comfort over growth. You chose the easy path of victimhood. I saw potential in you, real potential, and you threw it away. That's your tragedy, not mine. I'll be here for the rest of my life, and you'll be out there carrying the weight of what almost happened to you. We're both in prison now. Mine just has bars. Felicia read it twice. Then she put it in an envelope and sent it to the FBI. She didn't read it again. She didn't respond. But she thought about it sometimes, about the idea that he saw himself as a victim of circumstance, a man who'd been wronged by her escape, by her choice to survive and testify, and refuse to carry shame that wasn't hers. She thought about all the other men like him, still out there, still hunting, still believing they were the real victims of a world that wouldn't let them take what they wanted. And she understood, finally, that the scariest thing about Marcus Harlan wasn't that he'd tried to trap her. It was that he'd never seen her as human. He'd seen her as a mirror, a reflection of his own ambition. And when she'd cracked that mirror by running, he'd been furious, not because he'd lost her, but because he'd lost the image of himself she'd been reflecting back. 8 months after the trial, Felicia's mother stood in front of a small room full of reporters and announced the establishment of the Felicia Johnson Foundation, not the Felicia Johnson Memorial Foundation, because Felicia was there, alive, to see it happen. The foundation's mission was simple: help young women identify grooming tactics online, verify job opportunities, and understand predator patterns before it was too late. Felicia didn't speak at the press conference. She sat in the back and let her mother do the talking. But people kept looking at her. She'd become a symbol, a survivor, a before and after image of what happened when you survived. The foundation got funding from 3 donors immediately. One was a woman whose daughter had been kidnapped by a man she met online. Another was a tech CEO who realized his platform had been used as a hunting ground. The third was an anonymous donor whose note simply read, "Because it could have been me." Within 6 months, the Felicia Johnson Foundation was running workshops in 12 cities. Young women came, hundreds of them, to learn about the Marcus Harlans of the world, how they operated, what their language sounded like, how to verify information before getting on a plane, how to tell the difference between opportunity and exploitation. But something else happened too. Other women came forward, women who'd been approached by men using similar tactics, women whose cases had never been reported, women who'd survived situations that were eerily identical to Felicia's. The Foundation collected their stories. It documented patterns. It turned individual trauma into collective knowledge. The FBI reached out. They wanted to use the Foundation's research in their training. Law enforcement agencies wanted access to the databases of predator tactics the Foundation had compiled. Tech companies wanted to implement the red flags the Foundation had identified into their algorithms to catch suspicious behavior before it spiraled. Felicia became a consultant. Not because she wanted to be the face of trauma, but because she understood something that most people didn't. She understood how predators thought. She understood how they built trust. She understood the psychology of someone who saw other people as targets instead of humans. 9 months after the Foundation launched, Felicia was invited to speak at a tech conference in San Francisco. 3,000 people in the auditorium. Some came to hear about her trauma. Some came to learn about prevention. Some came because her story had gone viral and they wanted to be near someone who'd survived something they feared. She stood on the stage and didn't talk about what Malik had done. She talked about what she'd learned. She talked about the gap between how online personas are presented and how they're actually constructed. She talked about the way social media had democratized predation. She talked about the systems that had failed her and the systems that might protect someone else. When she finished, the standing ovation lasted 90 seconds. People cried. People came up to her afterward with their own stories, their near misses, their sisters, their daughters, the women who'd escaped or the ones they knew who hadn't. That night, alone in her hotel room, Felicia looked at her reflection in the mirror and tried to recognize herself. The woman looking back was older than 25. Not in years, but in the way her eyes held things now, the way she carried her body differently, the way she spoke with certainty about things she wished she didn't have to know. She thought about the old Felicia, the one in the white dress on the beach, posting about trusting the journey. That version of her was gone. But what had replaced her wasn't just victim. It was witness. It was voice. It was evidence that survival was possible and that survival could mean something beyond just continuing to exist. She called her mother. "Mama, I need to tell you something." "What, baby?" "I'm going to go back to school," Felicia said. "I'm going to study criminal psychology and victim advocacy. I'm going to make this into something bigger than what happened to me." Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That's my daughter. That's exactly what I knew you could do." The following spring, Felicia enrolled at Florida State University. She took classes. She volunteered with the Foundation. She answered emails from women who'd been targeted online and wanted to know if they were in danger. She built a life that wasn't built on trauma, but on the decision to transform it into something that could help. Marcus Harlan spent his days in a federal prison cell. He had meals he didn't choose. He had a schedule he didn't make. He had no contact with women outside the prison. He had no phones, no internet, no way to hunt, no way to manipulate. He had been removed from the ecosystem where he'd thrived. But on the outside, the hunting continued. Different men, different methods, but the same core impulse, to find women who were hoping for opportunities and turn that hope into a weapon. The Felicia Johnson Foundation documented them, tracked them, identified patterns. One by one, they stopped. Not because the internet became safe, it didn't, but because women started knowing what to look for. Because Felicia's story got shared by other women who recognized their own experiences in it. because the silence broke. 2 years after the trial, Felicia stood in her new apartment in Tallahassee with a degree in criminal psychology and a job offer from the FBI. They wanted her to join their cybercrime and human trafficking division. They wanted her expertise. They wanted her voice in rooms where policy got made. She hadn't accepted yet. She was thinking about it. She was thinking about spending the rest of her career diving into the minds of men like Marcus Harlan. She was thinking about whether that was healing or just another form of hunting. Her mother called. "Have you decided?" "Not yet," Felicia said. "Well, there's something you should see," her mother said. "It's on the news." Felicia turned on the television. A news alert was scrolling across the screen. Federal penitentiary escape attempt foiled. She clicked into the story. Marcus Harlan had tried to escape from Coleman Federal Penitentiary. He'd been part of a plan involving contraband cell phones and corrupt guards. He'd been caught before he made it out of the prison yard. They'd added another 10 years to his sentence. Felicia watched footage of him being led back to his cell, his face finally showing something. Anger. Or maybe it was the frustration of a man whose control kept slipping away from him. He looked at the camera and pointed, right at it, right at her, thousands of miles away. And his mouth moved like he was telling her something. She would never know what he'd tried to say. 3 weeks later, Felicia walked into FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. She'd accepted the job. She'd decided that her survival meant something if it could be transformed into prevention. If her knowledge could stop someone else from sitting in a parked car, waiting for a window to shatter. The FBI had an entire task force dedicated to online predation now. They called it the Harlan Initiative, after Marcus Harlan's case. It was supposed to be ironic, using the predator's name as a rallying cry for the people trying to stop people like him. But to Felicia, it wasn't irony. It was accountability. His name was no longer associated with his crimes in the abstract sense. It was literally tied to the system built to prevent his crimes from happening again. She spent her first month learning the job, analyzing case files, identifying patterns, building profiles, training other agents on grooming tactics and digital manipulation. She was good at it, not because she was naturally talented, but because she understood the psychology from the inside. She knew how a predator thought, because she'd seen it firsthand. She knew what the silence before violence sounded like. 6 months into the job, a case came across her desk. A man in Missouri using nearly identical tactics to Harlan. Meeting women online, offering opportunities, requesting travel. Felicia flagged it immediately. Within 2 weeks, they had a warrant. Within a month, the man was arrested. The women he'd targeted were interviewed. Some of them had almost boarded flights. They called Felicia to the press conference. She stood next to the local FBI field office director while he explained the case. Then he said, "We were able to stop this situation because of the work done by a woman named Felicia Johnson, who had the courage to survive a similar situation and then commit herself to making sure no one else experienced the same thing." The cameras flashed. The reporters asked questions. But Felicia was barely there. She was thinking about the women this man would have hurt if he hadn't been caught. She was thinking about luck and timing and the thin line between victim and survivor. She was thinking about the old Felicia, the one who'd believed that verified accounts on Instagram meant verification of character. By the end of that year, the Harlan Initiative had prevented 7 attempted crimes. 7 times, predators had been stopped before they could enact their plans. 7 times, women had been protected because of the patterns Felicia had helped identify. One of those women wrote her a letter. She was 19, from Ohio. She'd almost gone to Los Angeles to meet someone who'd approached her online. The FBI had shown up at her house 3 days before her planned flight. "I don't know who you are," the girl wrote, "but I know if you hadn't done what you did, I wouldn't be here. I would have ended up exactly like what you went through. You saved my life without ever knowing my name. Thank you." Felicia kept that letter on her desk. On days when the weight of the job felt too heavy, when she was drowning in case files of women who hadn't survived, who hadn't made it out of villas or cause or wherever their predators had taken them, she read that letter and remembered why she was doing this. The internet hadn't become safer because Felicia survived. Evil hadn't been eliminated because Marcus Harlan was in prison. The world hadn't changed in any fundamental way that would prevent other predators from hunting. But individual women, dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of them, were now making different choices because Felicia had chosen to speak. And that was something. 3 years after Felicia Johnson's escape, her story had inspired the Felicia Johnson Foundation, changed FBI protocols, influenced tech company algorithms, and led to the capture of 43 predators across 17 states. 2 of those predators would likely never have been caught without her foundation's intervention. At least 6 potential victims were protected because of the work she'd started. Marcus Harlan remained in Coleman Federal Penitentiary. He would die there. He would never hold another woman's hand under false pretenses. He would never look at another person with the calculation of someone pricing their worth. He was contained, but he was not unique. He was one of thousands, one of tens of thousands. So Felicia Johnson kept working. She kept analyzing. She kept building systems to protect women whose only mistake was wanting to believe in possibility. She kept telling the story of what happened to her, because the story wasn't just about her. It was about every woman wondering if that DM from the verified account was real or a trap. It was about every girl told she should have known better when she was actually just targeted by someone who knew exactly how to target her. The real ending of Felicia Johnson's story isn't closure. It's continuation. It's the choice she makes every day to transform what was taken from her into something that protects other Zulus. It's the knowledge that she survived not by luck, but by instinct, and that instinct has now become a voice that speaks for women who can't. If you're watching this, and you've experienced something similar to what happened to Felicia, know that it wasn't your fault. Know that survival looks like 1,000 different things. Know that your voice matters. Know that speaking up can change the trajectory of someone else's life. Before you go, we need you to do 3 things. First, subscribe to this channel. Second, turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next story. We tell stories that matter. Stories of survival, resilience, and transformation. Stories that can inspire and educate and protect. Third, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what this story meant to you. Tell us if you've experienced something similar. Tell us what changes need to happen to protect women like Felicia. We read every comment. We listen to every story, because the conversation doesn't end when this video does. It continues with you. It continues in your community. It continues every time someone makes the choice to stop being Holland and start being seen. Felicia Johnson is 30 years old now. She's still working with the FBI. She's still running the foundation. She's still answering emails from women who feel trapped in situations that sound too good to be true. And every time she does, she's changed the trajectory of one more life. That's her legacy. Not the trauma, not the escape, but the transformation of pain into purpose. That's a story worth telling. That's a life worth protecting. That's a voice worth amplifying. Thank you for being here for Felicia's story. Thank you for caring enough to listen. Thank you for being part of the solution by sharing what you've learned. We'll see you next time.